You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. The Chris Voss Show. Welcome to the big show, the Big Ten in the sky, folks. The podcast where billionaires, newsmakers, CEOs, the hottest authors come to talk shop and sell their wares and tell you about how to be smarter and better and all that good stuff, so you don't grow up and be like Chris Voss. See what I did there? We're going to be talking about some amazing things. Some of my favorite subjects, of course, as always. I wrote a book about it. Leadership. We love leadership. We're also going to talk about unicorns and leadership. So right now, you're probably sitting, listening to the show, going, leadership and unicorns and leadership. What is that about? Well, we have just the gentleman who's come on the show to tell us about it and let you know that unicorns evidently do exist, and you can be one too. According to William Vanderbloemen, he joins us on the show today to talk about his amazing book. November 14th, 2023, it comes out. Be the Unicorn. 12 data-driven habits that separate the best leaders from the rest. And that makes me just want to be a unicorn. And if you want to be a unicorn too, by the way, let's guilt and shame you into referring the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1 on the ticky-talkity, or whatever those kids are doing these days. William is the CEO and founder of Vanderbloemen Search Group, a top executive search firm. In his upcoming book that we aforementioned from HarperCollins Leadership, he reveals how job seekers, employees, hiring managers, and company leaders everywhere can stand out from their peers and become irreplaceable, building the careers that they've always wanted. He's been regularly retained to identify the best talent for teams, manage successful planning and consulting on all issues regarding business teams. And this year, he's going to complete his 3,000th executive search. Prior to founding his search group, he studied executive search under mentors with 25 plus years of executive search experience at the highest level. His learning taught him the very best corporate practices, including the search strategies used by internationally known firm Russell Reynolds. Prior to that, William served as a senior pastor at one of the largest Presbyterian churches in the United States. And he joins us here today. Welcome to the show, William. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks for having me today. I've really been looking forward to our time together.
I've been looking forward to as well. Am I getting your last name correct?
I don't know.
Okay.
I say Vanderbloemen, but
Vanderbloemen.
People in the motherland might say it differently. So,
oh, there you go. Where is the motherland, by the way?
It'd be Dutch.
Dutch.
So,
there you go.
Yeah,
it's
down in Limburg, where the really stinky cheese is. Yeah, that's where our people were for a long, long time till they came over right before the Civil War.
There you go. Well, welcome to America, to the Dutch, and all that good stuff. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. I really didn't want anything named after me, but the search engine, the SEO guys all said, after a big, long study, hey, listen, good news, we found the right domain. Bad news, it's your name. I'm like, what? And they said, yeah, no, your last name is so screwed up that you can misspell it into Google any way you want, and it'll come back to your site. So we went with that, and if people are looking for me, they can spell Vanderbloemen however they like into Google, or I guess some people use other search engines, and same in Amazon, just however you want, and it'll pop up. And it's a pretty cool site. If you're a business owner, like we spend our days helping great organizations find their top staff. And one of the ways we have tried to give back is to write content. So there are probably 3,500 free resources on how you can build and run and keep a great team at vanderbloemen.com.
There you go. So, give us a reason why you wrote this book, and
Yeah.
why should we want to be a unicorn? I mean, that
Yeah.
seems kind of, I mean, I'm a dirty old horse. Why do I want to be a unicorn?
So two reasons. One, a long-standing question, and two, I kind of fell into this. So the first one is this question. I don't know, Chris, if you ever go to a party and there's somebody in the room that everyone's drawn to. You know, they're just life of the party, or you meet somebody for a coffee, and within 5 minutes you're like, this one's a winner. Know it. I mean, have you ever had that happen? You just know it.
Yeah. It's usually with me alone. But there's that.
So I've been wondering for a long time, like, why is that? What's the superpower that within it? And can we figure out what it is? And is there any way to learn it? Or is it just sort of, it's like being able to run the 40 at a certain speed. You can't, I'm not going to win the NBA slam dunk competition ever, no matter how hard I train, right?
Yeah.
So there's this question. Why? Why do some people come off as winners right away? Well, fast forward many, many years after starting to ask that question, we had a pandemic, and most businesses shut down. Nearly all of our clients were shut down and on hiring freezes, and nobody knew what was going to happen with the world. So we did our own pivot and said, we've been careful financially. So this year we're going to spend our time serving our clients, and if we make money, fine, but serve, don't sell. Everybody's having a hard year. And in the rest of our time, we're going to spend working on the business and not in it, right? So back around to this question, what makes these unicorn-type people unicorns? We realized that when we were during this shutdown, when we do a search, maybe there are 1,000 people interested in the job we're trying to fill. Maybe 150 of them we take a serious look at. You phone interview and you Zoom interview and all that. And then when you get down to the very best of the best, which is not many for a search, we give a long format face-to-face interview. It's pretty detailed. We track it. We do a very similar pattern for every one of them. When we were in the pandemic shutdown, we realized we've now done 30,000 of these interviews.
Holy crap.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
And we've tracked them all. We kind of, I'd say that my team is OCD, but they'd get mad. They'd say, no, it's CDO because that's alphabetical. And, we said, all right, 30,000 face-to-face interviews. These are the top talent we've ever encountered. Could we identify the best of those 30,000? And we were able to. We're like, who got the job? Who excelled and got promoted? Who stayed? Like, who is this special unicorn of a person? And we identified them, and then we said, they have anything in common? And the answer was yes. And it was not the things I expected.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not at all. I thought IQ over 150. Nope. I thought 6 feet tall with great hair and bright teeth. Nope. Not that. All went to Ivy League schools or highly networked business societies or nope. None of those normal, not what I would have presumed, right? So what were these things?
Hey, can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Bribery. Did I win?
Didn't check that one. That's probably a good one too.
Bribery. That's what it was. Hey, tell the HR guy, here's $100, man. Let's go.
That's funny.
I'm not sure that works.
What we realized was they all behaved in similar ways. They all had common habits. We narrowed it down to the 12 top habits that they shared. And even more interesting, it's habits that are really common among the best of the best and super uncommon among normal, regular rank and file population. And so now the quick way of answering this is for 15 years, top organizations have hired me to find their next unicorn. Well, now I know how to teach you to become one. And that's pretty fun. So we're back to that. What makes these people that you see within 5 minutes who they are? Well, now we know, I think we have a bit of the code for how you become that person. So I'm hoping it helps a lot of people.
There you go. And we should plug John C. Maxwell. We were talking before the show. He's one of my favorite authors on leadership. Wrote the foreword for your book, too, as well. So
that's right. John's been a mentor to me for a long, long time and was kind to take time to contribute.
There you go. So give us a little bit of background, your hero's journey. How did you get into the field you got into? We don't have to start back at the Civil War when your family first came
Yeah,
here, but
yeah.
what's your origin story, kind of your journey?
It's a weird story, man. I don't know that you want the answer to this.
Well, I mean, keep it short, man.
Yeah. So, now you mentioned it briefly, but I am in recovery. I'm a recovering preacher. So I go a long ramble sometimes. I'll shorten it up. I served at a very young age, one of the largest Presbyterian churches in the country. Mm-hmm. And boy, I was in way over my head. I was 31, and I thought, the only thing I had going for me at 31, I knew everything. That was awesome.
Most people do that in their teens, so you were a late bloomer.
And I changed things a little too fast. It was a great church, great people. I was a little too entrepreneurial, but they were kind and patient. And then went through a divorce, which I would not recommend. Not a super fun thing. And it wasn't, oh, poor me. There was fault all over the place, but nothing the tabloids would have liked, but it was what it was. Went to work. I found myself a single dad with 4 kids and in no shape to be guiding someone spiritually at the moment. I needed to do some work on myself, right? Mm-hmm. And went to work in an oil and gas company, a rather large one. I live here in Houston, and we had several of those. So it was a Fortune 200 company, and they were putting me in a management rotation program, and they started me in HR, figuring, people will start there, right? Mm-hmm. So while I was there, the CEO said, I've been here 9 years as CEO, which I didn't know then, but now know that's a lifetime for a Fortune 200 CEO. That's way longer than the average. So he'd done a great job and said, it's time to find my successor. I'm like, cool. How do they do that? And they hired this thing called an executive search firm. I had never in my life heard of such a thing. I was the pastor at First Presbyterian Houston. It's where
And you thought you knew everything.
Sam Houston went to church at our church. That is back toward the Civil War. But, the church is healthy and lovely, and they took 3 years to find me.
Really? Wow.
I was there 6 years. I left, and there was a 3-year gap before the next guy.
Wow.
12 years, 6 with a leader, 6 looking for a leader.
Wow.
So I'm back in my oil and gas, and we need to hire an executive search firm. 90 days later, they had their next guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow. Oil and gas, 90 days. And for much of the population that doesn't live in Houston, is there a more evil empire than, the oil and gas? Ooh, right? 90 days for a new CEO, Fortune 200. Amazing church, doing good, been around forever. 12 years, half the time looking and half the time with. That doesn't add up at all. Yeah. And so I said, I wonder, I've got all this training, undergrad at Wake Forest and a seminary at Princeton, that maybe there's a better use for my training than this oil and gas thing. And I went home and I thought, why does the business world have a better solution than the church for this? And I went home and
because God wants it that way.
And Adrian and I had gotten married just a few months before, and so we blended our families with 6 kids.
New Brady house. Bunch. Brady Bunch right? Time.
Right. Yeah. And new house. And I said, you know what, babe? I think I'm supposed to quit my job and start something new for churches. And she looked at me and she said, that's because churches love new ideas, right?
Was that being facetious?
Just a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Churches and new ideas.
2,000-year-old book.
No. Churches and new ideas just don't get along very well. So, and Anna, she should have said, "Go back to work. I love your visions and your dreams, but we got to feed these people."
Yeah, I thought she was going to say, "How do I file an annulment?"
yeah, exactly. No,
you want to switch jobs?
She should get the credit. Oh, and the kicker is, it was the fall of 2008, which was a brilliant time to quit your job.
Oh, yeah.
But she said, hey, let's give it a run. And it started with, let's see if we can help churches find their pastor. And now it's turned into any kind of values-based organization that's driven by their values and their culture. And they want help finding not just talent, but talent that matches their values and their culture. So the book before this one was one on culture. We did a massive study and research project. So we get hired for, like, how do you find the tissue match? The why behind our what, to use that Simon Sinek kind of thing. Like, can you find us someone with the same why? And that has led us to be in this little very unique offering. There's not another search firm out there like this. And we've been fortunate and had some clients that love telling other friends about us. And it's just kind of organically grown way more than I ever thought it would.
There you go. Now, you used the term tissue search?
Tissue match.
Tissue match. Yeah, that was it. Tell us what that is. I think I know what it is, but tell us what that is.
Yeah. That's a great question. I tried to think of a good elevator pitch for why hire a search firm instead of just find somebody on my own, right? Mm-hmm. We live here in Houston. I live about 2 miles from the medical center. It's the largest gathering of doctors in the world. Okay, and then like my little neighborhood is just specialist after specialist after specialist.
Well, Mercedes-Benz's, yeah.
Well, that too, but they're just wicked smart. So I thought, when somebody needs a search for a new CEO or a new senior leader, it's really like a heart transplant, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to find someone outside the body or the company to come inside the body and run the major system of the place. Or maybe it's a kidney transplant if it's not a CEO, right? But it's an organ transplant. So I asked a couple doctors, I was like, hey, I like this image and this metaphor. What separates the best transplant docs from the rest? And they're like, all of them. We're like, you would think it's developing a donor list, finding people who, that's not it. The best transplant doctors are the ones that get the tissue match right.
Huh.
Because you can put a healthy heart into a healthy body, and if they don't match, there's rejection, and everybody has a bad ending. And we've all seen that in organizations that hire a CEO or a new leader, and they look great on paper, and they're healthy and they're strong, but they don't fit the why of that organization, and it blows up everywhere. And wow, that's more expensive than not doing anything.
That's very true. That's very true. So this makes sense. The tissue, the body of the organization. I love this concept. I never really thought of it that way. But, the one thing we learned the hard way with all of my companies back in the day was putting the time in to hire. And it takes extra time. It's, you can't fill the position right away. But taking that extra time to hire and find the right people is everything. Because Absolutely. Otherwise you can end up with just a nightmare on your hands of just the worst freaking people that you regret, that cause you problems, that there's legal issues with, and everything else.
And then you wait too long to fire them.
Yeah, exactly.
Number one mistake I've seen in all the years I've been working with people and HR solutions and exec search. Number one mistake: people hire too quickly and they fire too slowly.
Yeah.
And the nice way of saying it is, hey, let's do long hellos and short goodbyes.
That's on my Tinder dating profile. So there you go. I think I was going to use the joke. How can I use that to be on my Tinder check mark? So you have basically where you've outlined in the book 12 habits that have the best in common towards building authenticity, responsiveness, agility, and different things. Let's tease out some of these habits that you have inside the book.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you think, well, what are these habits? Do I have to learn like the Pythagorean theorem? Do I have to learn, brain surgery? No. Hey, here's one that people are going to say, well, that doesn't make sense. That's just stupid. Get back to people. Responsiveness. It's so easy, Chris, to be the best at what you do if you just get back to people, because we've studied and found that nearly everyone puts off getting back to people. And I remember a long time ago when I was super young pastor and we were looking for a new location, and I was riding around with my board chair, and he said, I think we could probably get that YMCA. I know the board chair of the YMCA, and call him, tell him, here's his number. I'm like, cool. And we were standing in my office, and he's like, when are you going to call him? I'm like, well, I'm like, you gave me the number 2 minutes ago. He said, well, what else have you got to do? I'll sit here and wait. I don't care. Call him. I'm like, huh. And he said, listen, the first chance you get is almost always the best chance.
Oh.
It's like when you're sitting at a busy intersection and right when you pull up, there's a little way to pull out and then you wait and then it's 15 minutes before you can turn out
I do
again.
that all the time. And then you kick yourself the whole time. You're like, what?
Same with responsiveness. People don't get back. Like, for instance, I don't know if you know this term, inbound marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like HubSpot, Infusionsoft, these companies where it's basically, if you don't know the term, if you're on a website and it's like, would you like more information or someone to contact you, fill out this form. You fill out the form, they get back to you. Right. So we were one of the very first early adopters for HubSpot years ago. In fact, the founder and CEO was one of the guys who was an endorser of the book. And they asked the question, the point of a sales call is not to close the sale. That whole always be closing thing is over. The point of a sales call is to get the next sales call, to keep the conversation moving toward closing, and it'll close when it needs to close, right? Especially we're doing kind of consultative sales, not transactional, buy it right now. And if you order now, I'll throw in a salad shooter. And like, that's not our, that's not our deal.
It's very different than hiring people. Yeah.
It's a higher ticket item. So,
although I note to self, offer HR people that are trying to hire me a free salad shooter if they do hire me.
That's right. That's right.
Put that right on the resume there.
So HubSpot asked the question, listen, how does response time correlate to the likelihood of another call? In other words, if you respond in this amount of time, how likely is it you're going to get the next conversation? So the study that was done revealed if somebody fills out a form, please contact me, and you respond to them personally, not AI, but like something like, if it's somebody that's in New York and you're like, well, I hope you weren't at MetLife last night. That was kind of a bummer, even though you won, right? Like that. Something personal and immediate. Within 60 seconds, you will get a 98% chance of talking to them again. Okay. You wait 20 minutes from when they fill out the form, it drops to 60%. 20 minutes, you've lost so much. If you wait more than 24 hours, according to the study, you have a less than 1% chance of ever talking to that person again.
Holy crap.
So then the question
I should do this with all my exes.
So then what is the average response time of people that have inbound marketing and use it? Average response time, 42 hours.
Oh, wow.
So like, this is not hard. If you just get back to people within a minute, that's really all you have to do. We did it in the early days of our company because I had 6 kids and a wife that needed to be fed. And if you reached out to me and said, could we talk? I'm like, how's now? But I kept getting comments over and over from people like, we couldn't believe how quickly you got back to us.
Yeah.
It's simple habits like that. And
there
you would think, like, we looked all across industries. We looked on, I didn't look at Tinder, but we looked on dating sites. Like, what's the average response time to people when it's, you're talking about people that are looking for love, right?
On all the wrong places.
Yeah. They don't respond quickly at all. And what we found, the unicorns, the people who are like, that's the guy I want on my team, they're maniacal about getting back to people quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I've even had people say to me over the years of business and stuff, how can you get back to me so quickly? Or they'll send me an email and I'll reply. And 9 times out of 10, they kind of got the luck of the draw where they sent me an email where I'm just between something, and they're like, is this an autoresponder? And I'm like, no, this is me. You just caught me at the most opportune moment. If you email me during a podcast, I'm not going to answer, but you just caught me right at the smack dab moment. And I learned a long time ago, I studied, I think it was in the Harvard Business Review, but they interviewed one of the early successful vice presidents for some of Apple. And he talked about how he handled his mail. And this is the old days of everything was mail and there wasn't email back then, but emails and calls and everything. And he's like, I have a process. And so someone edits the mail for me to see, get rid of the junk mail, and then they hand me the mail and or any sort of task list or demand for task list. He goes, I don't put it off. I look at it and I read it and I make a decision. He goes, because the dumbest thing you can do is waste your time by going, I'll get back to that. He's like, sometimes, there's things you get back to. But he goes, once I touch a piece of mail, I decide whether, I'm replying to or keeping or whatever it is and moving on. He goes, otherwise you're doubling up your time.
That's right.
And so that's kind of the process I use. And people will be like, man, you're really fast. And I'm like, yeah, we got to get this shit out, man. We do the same thing with the podcast.
My wife quotes a rule when it comes to stuff around the house, mail, that kind of thing. It's an old rule. I don't know if it was Oprah or somebody like OTIO, only touch it once.
Exactly. That's the concept. Yeah.
Only touch it once. And the unicorns find a way to triage in their mind, is this something that needs immediate attention or not? Because if somebody does reach out to you, you're in a world where you're going to grab your phone, you're going to check all the different social platforms and the LinkedIns and the emails and the texts and all. And if you happen to be on reaching out, if I reach right back to you, well, you're still on. Yeah. Right? Then the minute it goes down for dinner or whatever podcast or thing you're doing so it's so easy to stand out. So we have 7 kids now, and I've told every one of them as they've gotten older and asked for career advice, what should I do? What should I do? I said, listen, I don't care. Well, I do care, but it doesn't matter what you do. Here's the success formula. Do what you say you're going to do. When you say you're going to do it, at the price that you promised, and you will be in the top 5% of your industry. And I don't care if that's dog catching or running a country.
Yeah. What's the old lines? 95% of success is showing up and stuff. Like, people just don't get how
something like that.
It's
simple habits, Chris.
The basics.
Simple habits. It's just not rocket science.
There you go. So in your book, you identify 12 skills. I'm going to run through them here real quick. The fast, the authentic, the agile, the solver, the anticipator, the prepared, the self-aware, the curious, the connected, the likable, the productive, the purpose-driven, the good, the bad, the ugly. Wait, those 3 aren't on there. Those last 3. That's a movie. So those 12 that you have there, do we want to tease some of these out a little bit?
Yeah. So we talked about the fast, the responsive, right? The other thing that I found, all 12 of them are super easy to implement, but it's kind of like, I don't know. Have you ever had a friend who says they're going to start running and they spend stupid money on a treadmill and all it does is gather dust?
That's me.
Yeah, I'm talking about a friend. I'm talking about a friend.
Yeah.
So it's just not that hard. You just have to do it. And one of the habits that I have found is super true among the unicorns or super talented is they're curious. And that means a lot of different things. Yeah. One thing it means is when I don't do many searches anymore, I've got a great team here, a whole lot of full-time folks that do that, and they're better at it than I am. Every now and then I need to get involved because, your name's on the door kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so, damn door thing.
I know, right? The SEO guys, back to them.
Yeah.
So, if I'm involved, all the baseline stuff's already been done, and I'm spending time with you, Chris, you're interviewing for something. And I'm like, here's how we're going to say, hey, Chris, listen, man, I don't do many searches anymore. And you don't need to tell me your life story again. What I think might be the best use of our time, because I know the client, is to let you ask me questions that you might not want to ask your future employer. You're not going to bother me. Just ask me what you want to ask me. Do you know how much I learn from what questions you ask me?
Wow. I never thought about that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I learn way, way more. Well, what's the pay? Well, that's a stupid question to lead with. I mean, you got to get there sooner or later. What are the benefits? Well, I noticed that their mission is to provide clean water for people in Africa, and they've drilled this many wells. How are they going to decide where to drill next, and what's the decision making behind that? Like, okay, you did homework.
Yeah.
Or, man, this Chris Voss show that I want to go to work for them. It's hockey stick growth. It's like this, and I'm just curious, why is it growing, and why should I believe it's going to continue to grow?
It's because we have an OnlyFans channel on the side. No, we don't. That's a joke, people. Or, tell me about Chris. I want to know what it's like to work for him. What's
what
He's an
makes
asshole.
him, well, what makes him happy and do backflips, and what makes him just, run? So there's a curiousness, and I noticed this first when I was running a pretty cool organization that I ended up in regular interaction with absolute world beaters. They were just the captains of whatever industry they were in.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed a correlation. The more successful a person was, the harder it was for me to get them to talk about themselves.
Mm.
I mean, they almost always wanted to talk about me, or they were asking me questions. One example from a long time ago, this First Presbyterian church I was in, I don't know if you remember the name Lloyd Benson.
Sounds familiar.
So he was on the ticket as vice president, running against Bush and Quayle. So that's a long time ago.
Okay, yeah.
He's the one that looked at Quayle and said, "I knew Jack Kennedy. You're no Jack Kennedy."
That's where that was. What a great line.
Yeah. So when he died, I had to do the funeral.
Oh.
Miss Benson calls me and says, "Do you mind if we have someone do a eulogy before you speak?" I'm like, "Sure, Miss Benson, whatever you need." She said, "Okay, well, President Clinton's going to do that." I'm like, I just drew the shortest straw in public speaking possible. So, long story short, there was going to be a burial first, and the Senate sent a plane with everybody you can imagine. I mean, it was a big old deal. And we were going to have this outdoor thing at the cemetery before the funeral. And then it rained cats and dogs. Well, so they had to revamp. And the net was President Clinton and I ended up in my office for about 2 hours, just one-on-one.
Yeah.
I tried to get that man to talk about himself. He wouldn't do it.
Oh, did he offer you any cigars?
No, he asked me questions. Oh, I see on your desk a brochure. You're leading a trip to Turkey and Greece. You should call my friend, the guy who runs the Eastern Orthodox Church, basically the Pope of the Eastern world. And I'm like, well, Mr. President, I'll just get on the internet and try and figure out everything. And he said, no. I'm going to connect you.
Wow.
And then, so I tried to flip it. I'm like, he's wearing this little yarn bracelet. And I'm like, where'd you get the yarn bracelet? He's like, oh, these kids in Bolivia gave it to me. They make it. They're doing it. I said, oh, you know what? We do mission work there. He's like, you need to get in touch with the whatever consulate or ambassador.
Like knows everybody.
Same thing. I'll just look. No. I'll take care of it. And he asked me 2 more things and kept asking about me. Right. And we spent 2 hours together. I knew nothing about him, but man, it felt like I was the only person in the room. I'm like, no matter what your political platform, if you spend time with that guy one-on-one, you're like, okay, I get why you won. Like,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I'm always curious about people too, because I'm sick of me. I mean, that's where I'm at. That's why I do the podcast, and I love it, talking to people, asking questions, because I'm more interested in them and their journey. Like I have 55 years with me, but that's interesting. He was like that. And if you want to know more about him, he was like president for 8 years. He was reelected twice.
Back when we were younger.
I remember much younger. Man, the energy I used to have back then. So yeah, that's interesting that people have that thing.
Chris, it's not common. Most people aren't curious. They don't ask questions. Just ask questions.
Yeah. They don't care. Is it they don't care? They're apathetic, or maybe they're just narcissistic and they love themselves too much.
Maybe all of the above. I don't know the why behind that, but I do know the best of the best are curious and they ask questions.
No, but those are the people you want for business and innovation, because when they come in, they're going to ask questions. They're going to be like, "Why do we do it this way?" And everyone goes, "Well, yeah, do it this way," and you're like, "Well, this is stupid. We should do something better."
Yeah, several of these habits are kind of cousins. They cluster around each other, and one around curiosity. The other one is the agile. And that's the person that's always.
You mean agile?
Yeah, one of the two.
Sorry.
And here's the thing. So years ago, when our 7th, who's 13 now, she's probably 3 or 4. I'd gotten to the age. We're pretty similar age, and I'd gotten to the age where I do try and run regularly or jog. And I needed to stretch because I was starting to get injured.
Yeah.
So the stretching was harder than the run. I mean, like touching the toes was worse than 6 miles. I couldn't, and I was in my den stretching after a long run, and the little one comes in, sees me just dying to try and touch my toes. She walks up next to me, sits down on the floor, ties herself in a human pretzel, as only little kids can, right?
Yeah.
Stands up and looks at me and laughs and leaves the room. And I'm like,
that's when you put them up for adoption or send in the military.
well, you know what I did do? I thought to myself, you know what, William? Every day you're alive, you get less flexible.
Yeah. I see what you're up to there.
See that?
Yeah.
It's true of organizations. They calcify with time. It's true of people. And
my liver.
It's a biological fact. So when you run into somebody who's committed to stretching themselves and committed to agility, man, that's a special person.
There you go. I love it.
It comes out, think about the people who really excelled during the shutdown of the pandemic. It's the ones who really did learn how to pivot and do something different. Even no matter what your job was, you had other duties as necessary come up. The people that rose to the top were the ones like, seize the moment. We've never done this before. Hey, jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's how I like doing it. Wait.
Well, you know what? It's how it's going to be. With the rise of AI over the next 10 years, if you aren't agile, you're dead.
Yeah, it's moving way, way faster. We were talking about this week with some different authors that were on, and you're right. It's moving whipping fast. Like, even as far as I'm used to moving fast, I'm just like, yeah, man, it's a AI thing, man. It's going.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about the 12 habits in the unicorn is there aren't many of them that AI can do. A lot of them are the soft skills, the human skills, which I think are going to become the premium over the next decade as AI the history of work is we invent something cool to make things efficient. It replaces human jobs, and we got to go find a new way to use humans. It's just think to the Industrial Revolution. This is not a new song sheet, right? But the people that will do really well in the next 10 to 12 years are people who will focus on things like the 12 habits, the soft skills of humans, the things that a computer cannot do. And I'm hopeful that that'll help people that are out there right now wondering, is my job going to be around in 5 years? Well, study these things, and I think you'll find it will be there.
Definitely. I mean, you're preparing yourself to be the best machine that you possibly can. One, number 7 is the self-aware. Self-awareness, self-actualization, and self-accountability, I imagine, would fall into that chapter. This is really important because being a leader, we talked to somebody this week or last week about how a lot of leaders that they poll aren't self-aware, and that's where their weakness is.
Absolutely. Narcissism is a spectrum. And it is. I mean, honestly,
me about it.
Well, you know this. You've interviewed thousands of entrepreneurs, and you are one. A narcissist is someone who really thinks they can bend reality to their will.
That's true.
And people who start a company have to have a little bit of that, or they'll just listen to the world, and the world will tell them, that's dumb, don't do that. Okay, I won't try something. No, they're just believers in what they're doing. I've lived that, starting our company. But within that spectrum, there are very few people who can develop enough self-awareness to know how that is going to impact the crowd around them. The people who are self-aware separate themselves. Like you ever do a job interview, you're interviewing for a job, and they say, so tell me about yourself. I hate that question.
Yeah, it's pretty open-ended. Like, where do you want me to start? Prison
my
time?
Mom and my dad felt really like they really loved each other a lot. And then
prom night.
Right.
Back on Chevy.
Well, here's how a unicorn answers that. Oh, Chris, I'm interviewing for work with you. I'll tell you about myself. Look, I was studying your company, and I've seen you just grown crazy. You were on the front end. You're podcasting back in 2008, 2009. I mean, like, that's at the beginning of everything. You guys probably had to figure it out as you go. You know what?
We did.
I am on the Enneagram. I'm a 7. On the Strengths Finder, I'm an innovator, right? I do well in situations where we don't really know what we're going to do next, but we're growing fast and we got to do it fast. And I can tell you, because in my last job, they had me start a marketing department. I didn't have any tools. I got them onto HubSpot. I got them onto this. We saw 40% growth over the first year. Now, you see what happened there?
Yeah, I do.
I'm showing you self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to say, and that's, Chris, why I'm super excited about the chance to interview with you, because I think the way I'm wired matches the kind of person you need.
Yeah. And you're curious too. You did the research and stuff. Right. You're not just like, hey, when do I get paid? And when's my first vacation day?
That's exactly right.
I used to love people when I'd hire them.
And you can take it a step further, and you can say, you know what, Chris, if you were interviewing me to be like your controller or your compliance officer and teach you how to follow rules, and that's just not me. Yeah. I'm not. I would get fired from that really fast. And what you've done there is you prevented the question that nobody knows how to answer, and that is, tell me about your greatest weakness. Well, I never ask for a raise. I work too many hours. No, you've just shown self-awareness. I know where I'm most productive. I can see it in what I've done in the past. And I think I'm going to fit your company because what you're doing is similar to my wiring.
Yeah. I thought of a good question I can ask when I'm hiring people too. Tell me about the times you're in prison. I got some great stories about some people that tried to dodge around that with me. They'd done some prison time and they left like a 3-year hole in their timelines.
Yeah.
And you're like, so dumb. Like, dude, when I was 20, I knew to match that shit up. And then my favorite is when they go, what are the dates don't match? And I go, I don't know. It's your resume. And I'm like, it says you're working for XYZ company. And they go, no, during that time I was working for that company. And they'll literally ask for the resume back. And I go, I'm not giving it to you back. This is your damn resume. You should know it's on it. So what have we invented here, buddy? Which part is the lie? Which is the truth? And then they're all kerfuffled. And that's when you go, well, whatever. But yeah, there's that. So there's a lot of great stuff in here. I love the 12 techniques, the 12 tips that people can use. The curious, the connected, the likable. These are all really great skills. The purpose driven person is the 12th as to driving your own purpose. I think that's really good. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, so I'm sure your listeners have heard the Simon Sinek talk, the why behind the what, know the why, something like that. It's got 8 bajillion views. The number one selling nonfiction book in history, other than the Bible, is a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And it's like understanding what you're wired to do and what your why, your thing that makes you do crazy stuff because you've got to get that task done. The unicorns know their why. They know that they want to, whatever it is, end world hunger. They want to make enough money to give to their great grandchildren. They want to, doesn't have to be a giant purpose. It just needs to be a North Star that guides everything that they do. And the people who are clear on that are very rare, but it's not super hard to be one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah, the people that have a purpose in life, they know what they're doing. They're not just aimless going, I mean, I always did what I did because of vodka, but I suppose that was a purpose in some sort of way for 20 years. So there was that. But, vodka and money and chicks. I don't know, whatever. So there you go. I love the concept behind this, and then I can be a unicorn. No, do I get a horn if I become a unicorn and fulfill
I probably ought to develop something like that.
Yeah, you should. I want one for my desk, eh?
You know what we did develop that's super helpful, and it's launching today as well, is a software tool where you can. So we identified the 12 things with the unicorns, and then we surveyed 250,000 people about those 12, giving a self-assessment. And then we built. Hired a bunch of applied math, hired counselors, and how do we build this thing out where why don't you take this little inventory and it'll show you how you match up against the general norm and how you match up against the best of the best. And what are your top 3 habits of the 12 and what are your bottom 3 so that you can have a coaching plan for how you can get better. What should I work on first? Where should I go first?
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited about that.
I took the test and it said I'm a donkey. So I'm not even a horse. So I got some work to do. You said you're a dumb mule. And I'm like, well, I mean, you don't have to be rude about it, but there you go.
Everybody likes donkey, and don't you?
Well, yeah, and the Shaq thing, but I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. I got nothing with the rest of that joke. So this has been really insightful, William, and it's been fun to have you on and hear about your Brady Bunch family. Are we going to keep adding to this? Is there more
No,
of a
no.
story?
Well, if we do, it would be we're going to have a long conversation about how that happened.
Yeah, that's well, you never know with these things. But there's the story of a little lady. I don't know how the hell it goes. You'd think I'd know that story, but this is wonderful, and I'm glad you put out the book because we need better leaders. We need better leaders who are self-aware, they're self-accountable. We just need better leaders. Damn it. Maybe we can send this all to politicians and see if we can develop some, which is probably not ever going to work. So there you go. William, thank you for coming on the show. Give us your .coms so we can find you on the interwebs.
Vanderbloemen.com. That's all you need. Spell it however you want. You'll get there.
There we go. That's so funny. Folks, order it up wherever fine books are sold. Be the Unicorn, 12 data-driven habits to separate the best leaders from the rest. November 14th, 2023. It's out. They studied over 30,000 top leaders and discovered the best 12 habits. So if that's not good enough for you, what more do you want? Jesus, 30,000 leaders. That's awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss. Watch for us on the big LinkedIn newsletter and Chris Voss one on the Tickety Talkety. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And